October of last year, it's Honkai Star Rail's 1.4 patch. Jingliu, a brand new Destruction Limited 5-star, comes out and is the talk of the meta. Record-breaking damage per cycle potential, constant arguments over Jingliu versus Lunay, not to mention a clear lack of substantial story content as we entered a long filler period for the game, as we all heavily awaited for Pinnacone's release. Topaz and her pet companion released a few weeks after, in the same patch, and is completely undershadowed. Her damage and scaling pales in the comparison to the other recently released damage dealers. She buffs follow-up damage, but who even has follow-ups? March 7th? Jingyuan? So niche. She doesn't even have a good relic set to use either. Not to mention, the first rerun banner of the entire game ran alongside her, Seela, the character everyone long awaited to pull for again, who at the time was definitely still an amazing value to have. It felt like everything was against Topaz and Numby. Even the men couldn't save her sales, as she's a very independent woman and less appealing to the general fanbase, and therefore suffered one of the least pulled banners in the entire game, living proof that she was unpopular. And yet, she was actually my favorite character, and still to this day, even more now, as my attachment has grown and grown. It saddened me that there was seemingly no love at all for my dear Jelena. I even got super lucky with my pulls and ended up getting her both E1 and signature light cone. But I didn't let that stop me. I was determined, even more so with feeling alone in the community, to be the most dedicated Topaz main ever. Who cares if she's unpopular? Who cares if she's niche? I will ride with this and see where it goes. Nobody ever expected it. A bunch of fools, they were. Failing to realize that she spoke the truth right before our eyes. Every single time we used her ultimate.
Right! Investing in victory means playing the long game!
And so we did. We Topaz mains played the long game, and here we are now. This is how Topaz became one of the most valuable characters in Honkai Star Rail. When Topaz released in 1.4, she did at least bring a long-awaited buff to the general. And so, that's exactly what I used her for. As prior, I was a Jingyuan main and constantly a bit disappointed with his Lightning Lord numbers. However, they didn't really pair perfectly at all, as Jingyuan is meant to be played slow, while Topaz is very fast, not to mention single target. And supports at the time were almost purely for hyper carry. We didn't have any good dual damage supports other than Asta. 1.5 came around, and it got better for both of them, however, as a new relic set released that purely buffed follow-ups. Not just any follow-up could use it though, specifically, multi-hit follow-ups could. This finally gave Jingyuan and Topaz an actual viable set that buffed them far, far more than the prior lightning and fire sets. Not to mention, it meant you could grind both in the same domain now. Also, quick note, Huahua, my other favorite character, not counting Venturine, somehow released right after Topaz. What is the coincidence? Anyway. Then 1.6 followed. Renmei, the first limited 5-star Harmony, released, and she happened to be perfect for dual comps, as she buffed the entire party. She especially benefited Jingyuan, another buff for the general, but as for Topaz, she wasn't really fully satisfied quite yet. That's okay though. She knew what was soon to come. After Renmei's banner, Dr. Ratio was given to everyone for free, and he was the best in slot for Topaz, seeing as if you had her E1 or S1, she would provide debuffs for him to operate, and she would also buff his super beefy follow-ups. But at the same time, we didn't really have a perfect synergy support, nor sustain. Fushuan worked just fine, and for me I used Huahua and Japard, but there is much to still be desired for Topaz. All this potential, but nothing to truly let it explode. 2.0 released with Black Swan, and although she was a massive buff for Kafka and DOT teams in general, she offered no use to Topaz. After came Sparkle, who was another support who buffed Jingyuan, but wasn't preferable for Topaz, as not only does she not really need SP, but Sparkle is still best used for hypercarry teams. Jingyuan even reran on that banner, so his fans were eating like crazy. But that would all change in 2.1. Y'all see, I swear. Acheron released in 2.1, and although Topaz is a neat teammate for her in high investment teams, that's not the highlight here. The highlight is none other than Topaz's co-worker, Aventurine, the sexy man himself. You see, not only is he the best sustain in the game at the current moment, but he's specifically catered towards follow-up teams. Why? Well, Aventurine has a follow-up attack of his own that allows him to replenish all shields without using SP at all. That follow-up's tally can be increased by allies using follow-up attacks. This not only made it easier to survive, as I often found Topaz being too fast for Japard's shields to keep up with, but it was perfect synergy with Topaz, as Numby's action is advanced forward anytime someone does a follow-up attack on an enemy marked with proof of death. Aventurine's follow-up is AoE, which means Numby would always be advanced forward. And he was amazing for Dr. Ratio as well, as Aventurine provides debuffs with his ultimate in his base kit, and with his light cone, he provides a debuff to every enemy when he follow-ups. Hell, if he somehow got his E2, he further debuffs every basic attack. This meant that Dr. Ratio finally had all the debuffs he needed on this team to function his best consistently. All that was left for the IPC team to get better was a better support, and then we'd have it all. Well, little did we know, in patch 2.2, we got exactly that. Robin, the best support in the game not only tailored for follow-up characters, but for dual damage dealer teams. She provides insane attack buffs, a damage percent buff, crit damage for follow-ups exclusively, and she can advance forward the entire team upon using her ultimate. She works so well with the IPC team because she gains energy for every single attack her allies use. Follow-ups count, which means automatically any characters who can consistently output follow-ups provide her more energy. But what's even better? They knew what they were doing, and Topaz reran on this banner. This was super amazing, as people who didn't get to have her before finally had a chance to. After all these buffs, not to mention prior users having the chance to pick up her light cone and her eidolons, which were all amazing. I ended up getting another copy of her light cone, and up to her 4th eidolon, which I'm very happy with as I plan to E6 S5 her on her rerun to show my dedication. Regardless, the team was finally complete. It was rather high investment, but if you got Topaz the first go around, you would likely had plenty saved for both Robin and Aventurine, assuming you didn't pull for every banner. If you have this team, you're set! Damage for days, no damage ever taken, yay! And it'll only get better for you as each rerun comes out and allows you to get more eidolons for everyone. That being said, it doesn't even stop there. Now that Robin exists, Topaz is no longer limited. She can freely run with another damage dealer without sacrifice, which is her entire gimmick. This means every single new follow-up character who releases benefits from her. Jade released at the end of 2.3, and although they don't work entirely well, Topaz can still buff her and be a good teammate assuming you have Jade's E1. 2.4 just released, and Yunli, again, works perfectly with Topaz, even better than Clara did. And you think that isn't enough? March 7th just got a new form, and it's the perfect replacement to Dr. Ratio if you like her more, or missed getting him for free. Topaz is a very fast character who constantly acts, which means March gains stacks for her enhanced basic far more consistently than most characters. If you have Topaz, you are constantly being rewarded for investing into her. I'd like to say now, if you're enjoying this video at all, I would absolutely love if you considered liking, subscribing, or even just leaving a comment. It would make my day. All for the Amber Lord! Now, I suggest clicking off the video if you don't like knowing leaked character kits, as I will be discussing Topaz's new best-in-slot teammate who will be releasing in patch 2.5. I'll give you 3 seconds. Alrighty, so in the next patch, Mose as well as Fischl will be releasing, and my mind was absolutely blown upon discovering that both of them are phenomenal Topaz teammates. Mose's kit is pretty much Topaz's, but instead of having a pet trotter alongside him, he just works alone. This means that paired with Topaz, they can just absolutely destroy any single target, which makes them an amazing pair for Memory of Chaos bosses. And it also allows Topaz to have team variety for different elements, seeing as he is electric. But the real kicker is Fischl, who is undoubtedly Topaz's best-in-slot teammate now, and only gets stronger in that department if she has eidolons. Fischl is this badass strong woman who's essentially the Hunt Acheron, who seeks follow-ups rather than debuffs, to then unleash an insane damage-dealing ultimate on a single enemy. At this current moment, she has the fastest base speed in the game. Her skill allows her to advance forward herself, and she has a follow-up attack that she does a lot more consistently than someone like Dr. Ratio, having Topaz's support be utilized more. And she lacks the need of debuffs, so she isn't as restrictive as Ratio either, which means she's way more friendly to those who don't have Eidolons or Light Cones for Aventurine or Topaz. Why is she now the best though? Well, one of her gimmicks is that her ultimate is counted as follow-up damage. This means that Topaz is the only character who can significantly buff her ultimate, and it also means that Numby will be advanced forward assuming that she uses it on an enemy who is marked. And she could get outright ridiculous, as one of her Eidolons allows her basic and skill to also count as follow-up damage. That is insane! Not only buffing her damage via Topaz, but also meaning every follow-up attack she does will advance Numby. Every time Numby attacks, that's an extra stack towards her ultimate, so the cycle is theoretically going to be broken. Her damage currently is possibly the best in the game without a doubt, so if you have Topaz, please I beg of you to consider saving, especially if you find Fishrow super badass and kinda nice to look at like I do. And so yeah, that's the video. I ignored the fact that we also had plenty of new relic sets constantly come out that benefit Topaz as well. But the point of this video is to let people know truly how much Topaz never ever lied to us. She said exactly what we would get. Topaz is currently the Kafka for follow-up teams, and this means that she isn't being replaced anytime soon. This makes me incredibly happy to see my favorite character go from completely niche to invaluable meta character. I hope you enjoyed, and on that note, go Numby!